Welcome. I'm DJ Lumalum here to say it's time for a little show called DisOrganized Play. I got my friend, he's got a good look. His name is Wazy Dom Zook. We're gonna do it. Oh, we're on now. You're not supposed to turn it on until after the intro's done.
Too bad.
That was as much freestyle rap as I could do. I would like to apologize to everyone who's a fan of freestyle and or rap. Hey everyone, I'm Tom Lommel. I'm your host. Welcome to DisOrganized Play. We talk about Dungeons & Dragons. On Tuesdays, I prep a game of Dungeons & Dragons. On Wednesdays, I run a game of Dungeons & Dragons right here on this channel.
You
at
do?
8 p.m. Pacific. And on Thursdays, we come back and we talk about how that game went and what went wrong. This is Dom Zook. He's in charge of everything important here except the things that come out of my mouth. Those things that come out of my mouth, I'm solely responsible for better or for worse. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I appreciate you tuning in to our little Dungeons & Dragons tango, as it were. These are just they look fine on camera, but they're just close enough here.
You think that they're...
It seems like they're in the way, but they're not.
But they're not.
Yeah. So, welcome. We have a few things on the agenda today. I think we are going to do we did a recap, but I'd like to do another recap, catch people up just very quickly. And then the things that we're going to talk about today. Places we have to visit, things that we have to pay off. It is going to be not our season finale, but our D&D finale for Iron Keep Chronicles, because next week we're going to be having a very special holiday episode of Master Tommen and his recruits go off and do paladinly things. So that is good times. Welcome to everyone in the chat, everyone who's new and whatnot. Welcome to the show. If you have some questions, we generally take those at the end, unless they're about the show or what I'm planning. Then we take them as we go. But if you have questions about D&D or running your games, Thursdays is the best day to do that. But if we have some time at the end of the show today, which is always a questionable call, then I'll be happy to take one or two questions about role-playing games. What you're having problems with at your table, maybe what could make your table top experience a little bit better, etc. So, welcome everyone. Glad to see everyone on board. So this week is going to be our D&D finale, as I just said. Next week will be, I'm not even sure we're going to run it in D&D. I don't know. I think we might do some sort of special. Oh, maybe that will be one of our tip jar unlockables.
Traveler.
Is what system do we run Master Tommen and his recruits in? Every time I say Master Tommen and his recruits, I feel like it's some sort of late 50s children's book.
Master Tommen and his recruits.
Make way for ducklings and Master Tommen and his recruits.
Yeah.
So that is the Buzzaloony. So today's topics, the Palace of Mirrors. We're going to talk about the Silver Citadel and the Ritual. So
Safehold. Silver Safehold.
Safehold. Yeah, Safehold, Stronghold. I can't remember if it's a Safehold or a Stronghold.
Well, you say Safehold here.
I know what it says there, but I wrote that off the top of my head. I don't use my notes when I write up these things for the chat stream. Please, I don't use my notes anyhow. So I thought it would be interesting though to go through Risky Pixels in the house. I thought it would be worthwhile to go through and look at our notes from last week. Yep. And review and see what we paid off and what we didn't pay off. Because we had I was expecting to get to the Silver Safehold last session, and we did not do that, right? We spent the entire session basically in Ailerod's Tower, which was fine. I was happy with that. It was fun. But I expected it. So let's take a look at what we wrote down.
I like your fix for the line.
Yeah, I accidentally wrote a big line in here. I don't know how much cropping you did or
There
not.
you go. I did none.
None cropping?
None cropping.
There's some cropping here. All right. So, things that we did not pay off at all. We did not pay off Gingy. We did not pay off Xanathar. We did not pay off the Mat. We did not confront or slay Asmodeus. We did not find Laeral Silverhand. We did not stop the ritual. We did not set up any clues to purifying Black Razor or leading into the expedition of the Barrier Peaks, nor did we talk about Warwind. So keep that in mind. All right, let us though take a look at what's going on with Ailerod's Tower. We did. I forgot about this bat pole thing that we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
Putting in there. Maybe we'll put that in the Palace of Mirrors or something. That would be a fun idea.
So what did you do?
What did we do? Listen. You watched the show. You know what we did. We had some fun role-playing scenes. Is what we did. That was a big part of it.
I'm trying to find here. Picture of Ailerod comes to life.
Yeah. All right. So challenge was there an environmental challenge to getting into Ailerod's Tower? There was an environmental challenge. That was the column of the wall of steel, the wall of iron that was encasing the place. So that did actually happen, right?
They flew over it.
This was interesting. Paint a picture of who Erethdor is, but we mostly painted a picture of who Ailerod was or is, right? So that's interesting. They didn't get to the purpose of the ritual. None of this stuff happened. Wow. Well, we did a terrible job.
So when I was watching this, I was thinking that you might have connected Ailerod and adapted, because I saw and liked that you picked up Havana's curiosity about the painting.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I could use this, and so you made Ailerod come to life, as it were.
Yes.
And so I thought you were going to make him the guardian keeper.
Oh, of the Palace of Mirrors.
Yeah. But no, that didn't happen.
No, that did not happen. No.
And also, the demons that were coming to fight them. Where is that?
Where are those demons in here? Yeah. Where did that come from? So, some of this stuff, I don't know. Do we have a page on the ritual? I don't think we do. No. Well, I mean we do, but it's very very blank.
We're like, we'll fill that in later.
So here's what happened, right? I think this is instructive. Because these 2 pages are planning for the next session, right? And in order to fill this out, what I really had to do was I had to think about what the silver safe hold is like, right? I had to think about what the ritual is what's happening, what it's about, who might be involved, etc. That sort of stuff, right? And I know that the moon stars are involved. Now, to give myself some credit, but let me make my point before I start patting myself on the back. In order to, we're trying to convey what's going on, right? That was our goal last session, to try to give the players an idea of what they're headed into, right? Basically, it's sort of foreshadowing, like, all right, this is the challenge that's before you, and kind of crank up the tension and suspense by going, oh shit, I don't know how we're going to handle that, right? So in order to do that, though, in order to get through this part, like, you can't paint a picture of who Erethdor is until you think about what the ritual is, what he's trying to accomplish, right? So we know that it has something to do with Asmodeus. We know that Laeral Silverhand is missing. We know that he's got this cadre of moon stars that he's recruited. We know that, because he's Asmodeus, he's in league with these devils or demons or whatever, right? So what I realized in prepping the session on Wednesday afternoon or whatever it was that the stuff that I wrote down here was not as important as what our end scenario was, what our end game scenario was going to be. And that those things needed to be communicated or at least inform this stuff before we could answer really a lot of these questions, right? Although, I will say, I did do a lot of thinking about the Palace of Mirrors. I don't want to talk too much about the Palace of Mirrors today because I feel like I've got a pretty good lock on what that is. So this is prep that happened last week that we just didn't get to. But that's okay. We did have this, I don't know, I thought we had a really fun, it was almost like a breather kind of session. And I don't know whether that was smart or not, given that we're trying to compress everything until a big payoff this week. Like Estelle Castillo says, just 6 more sessions for our finale. Tomorrow's our finale, so 6 more sessions, and then we'll be done with this. So I don't know if it was smart to have a session that was a little bit kind of role-playing heavy, but I thought the players really enjoyed it, and we had some wonderful opportunities to bring the whole group together. And the group has had some like dynamics, like interpersonal dynamics, not in terms of players, but in terms of characters. Like they've been butting heads quite a bit here in Waterdeep, especially with Thawne sort of going rogue, but then Thawne and Avril going off and doing this job behind his back, and with Ava coming in and not really having a lot of hooks into the rest of the characters. Like, it's been a lot of, like, as a party, they're not really firing on all 4 cylinders. So it was nice to kind of have a moment where they sort of unified together and had this role-playing scene with Ailerod. I also really like Ailerod. I feel like he needs to, like, come back. Like, I could almost see... So in hindsight, one thing that I thought I should have introduced, but I'd like to bring back, is what if Ailerod either was the engineer or consultant behind the Iron Keep, right? Because he's clearly created this extra dimensional fortress with all these rooms that don't necessarily connect in a way that makes, logical sense, blah, blah, blah. And he also, like, apparently exists outside the normal time continuum, things like that. I realized later, I'm like, oh, this would have been a perfect time to, like, ping them with a reminder, like, oh, this is also, like, he's somehow connected to the Iron Keep. And when I thought that, I thought he could literally be connected to the Iron Keep. So if, say, their big reward for defeating evil in Waterdeep is that they now get Ailerod's tower, right? Like, let's say that that's a reward. I could see you save Lady Laryl's silver hand, you save the town from... this demonic, or devilish plot, they could give you something. If they give them the tower, they could find a room or whatever where it's inside the Iron Keep. Like maybe one of the doors, there's those 9 doors in the Iron Keep. One of the doors is attached to, like they go through a door in Ailerod's tower, open it up, boom, we're back at the Iron Keep. What? I think that would be a fun connection. So that's why all of this stuff sort of went off the rails. Is 1, we gave him a little room to breathe, and 2, I've been thinking more about this session than I was thinking about cramming all this stuff into this session. Also, I will say that a big thing that is on here is that we had an environmental challenge, but we had this guardian challenge, right? So we did get into a combat that ate probably half hour, 45 minutes. I didn't look exactly at what it was. So that's, I think the Palace of Mirrors could have taken the place of that, but I liked that combat. I thought it was interesting, creepy. Yeah. It was good. It was fine. It wasn't just fine. It was good. So that's where we're at. So the Palace of Mirrors. Now I think it's time to. I think we need to take a look at the Palace of Mirrors and really maybe focus in on a couple things here, right? So So one question that we have to ask ourselves is, what secret does this guardian want, right? This is clearly a clutch piece of information. There's a guardian and keeper. He's going to want something in return. What sort of sacrifice, what bargaining chip can they bring that's going to let him, that'll let them access the information that they want?
Right.
I don't think they're going to get multiple trips, so we can just take that, clean off the thing. I don't think it's smart for them to encounter other travelers and residents, except potentially, like, I could see this as a tip jar healing unlock or something like that. Because they're not in great shape, they're in okay shape. But they do have, they did get the blessing of that feast.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that's really not accounted for here in these prep notes, right? Which is they were so drained of resources that they needed a little bit something, right?
Addicted Decoy asked the question: is Asmodeus a demon or something?
Oh
else?
yeah. Oh, he is. I think Addicted Decoy said, "What is he the demon of?" Right. So he's been established as the Lord of Lies. So that's
demon of something in particular.
yeah.
Yep.
And that's a little bit weird, right? Like, it's a little weird to figure out. It's a little obtuse, let's put it that way. But I think it's worth, like, I'm going to make a note about it. We'll come back to that. So that's that thing. All right. Now, some of this stuff, like negotiate scrying or communication or whatever, like, I think that just sort of ties into whatever this is. Like you can get this if you want. I think it is important to set the scene and possibly somehow communicate with allies or bring more allies aboard. Now, one of the things that we had talked about was doing some sort of set piece that was like sort of Storm King's Thunder style, right? So there's the silver safe hold that the various forces are defending, and you might have a group of NPCs who are creating a distraction over here, and then the party infiltrates like through the sewer system or whatever, right? Like, you could have that type of style. I don't know. That seems a pretty complicated thing to try and pull off, like to communicate that idea and to then set it up and play it out when we already have to have one setup scene for what's going on, right? So I don't think we're going to deploy that sort of designed setup in this particular situation. Mm-hmm. I like that idea, but it really needs to be its own session all in and of itself. And especially because I don't want this to bleed over beyond tomorrow night. I want to keep this fairly concise, set up the situation, make them pay somehow for what the information that they want to get and or the travel that they need to perform, and then we resolve it with the combat or what have you. So that's the Palace of Mirrors, right? I think how do we stop the ritual? There are three main things attached to the Palace of Mirrors. One is, what do they have to pay in order to activate and use this resource? Two is letting them see what's going on, figure out like what's happening with the ritual, find Arathor and all of his cronies, and observe what's happening. And then three, let them formulate a plan and or use the Palace of Mirrors in order to deploy a plan. So those are those last two things are really connected, but it's important that there's going to be a section that is sort of exposition heavy, right? Or at least a lot of back and forth in terms of, okay, well, we want to look at this, like, can we scry this guy and what is he doing? Oh, okay, you see that. Now, one opportunity that we have that just occurred to me is we could potentially have, because they could scry different people, they do have a list of names from that book. Like, I could give them that list of names from the book, and that might prompt them to go, well, I want to check on this guy, where's he at? And we could actually have a setup where there could be many locations for them to potentially attack versus just, we scry Arathor, okay, we go kill him, right? So that could be an interesting challenge of, okay, you scry Arathor, he's very difficult to attack directly, but if you killed this guy, you could sneak in a back way and then somehow pop up and attack him or whatever, right? But it just gives us the opportunity, like, because they have the Palace of Mirrors, you could send one member of the party to a different location, attack 4 places simultaneously. That could be interesting too. Something to keep in mind there. Let's move on to the silver safe hold itself, because what we're really talking about here is we're talking about our big finale set piece combat, right? And these are sort of our themes here. I'm going to write another one down here, which is multiple names multiple points of attack, right? So that's what we just did. That's what we just debated. But a big, this is advice that is certainly not original to me. Monty Cook brings this stuff up. Mike Shea, Sly Flourish, if you ever follow him on Twitter, which I recommend that you do. The big thing here is we need to discuss some fantastical aspects of the location, right? Because this is our big finale, right? And let's just go through and list some things that we know about the silver safe hold. That got a step. All right, so it's called the silver safe hold. Why? We don't know. But that's what it's called. So that should play into our theming of the location, if not into some sort of element in and of itself. Now, if we start doing a little brainstorming around this, we might think of Quicksilver. Okay, well, that immediately takes me to a whole different place than just some fortress that's made out of metal, right? If it's Quicksilver, maybe the place is continually shifting, changing, or there are these pouring sheets of mercury that you walk through that, like, those are the walls are continuously flowing sheets of mercury, and you don't actually, like, you have to make them part or whatever.
It's not healthy.
No, it is not healthy. So, yeah, as Estelle Castillo points out, it's time to blow the production budget.
This is what the model episodes be.
Yeah. So, so that's something to keep in mind. How do we play that into the theme of our location? I'm not sure. We also know that it's in the astral plane, right? I believe that got established last round or last session, that it's in the astral plane someplace. Why? What's going on? What's the deal with the astral plane? Is there a purpose or a way for us to exploit this? Now, we have already deployed something like this in our finale of what's the name of the first module that we ran?
Sunless Citadel?
Yeah, Sunless Citadel, right? So in the finale of the Sunless Citadel, we had this thing where everybody had a silver cord, etc. But I think, what if the players are there physically, but the other, like the NPCs are all there via their silver cord, right? So now you could attack that. I think you could have an interesting thing where Black Razor has some sort of interaction with it. There's a lot of, like, that's something that we could exploit. I'm not sure we're going to, but I want to write it down because that's something I know about the astral plane. Mm-hmm. I also know that it is, like, essentially timeless. Or there's just a different time flow, much slower. Boy, and this reminds me of reading all of those, like, not Planescape books, but all of those, like, Manual of the Planes books where it was like, right. Well, on this plane, time moves at 1/100th of the da-da, and on the ethereal plane, it moves at 1/10 of the da-da.
I almost picked one of those up, actually, at GameHoCon, but it's like, when will we need that?
When will we need that? I have it at home, so. Yeah, so, I mean, that is a good point that Estelle Castillo makes, is that if they could attack the silver cord and basically one-shot monsters, you can throw much bigger things at them than they normally would encounter and have that thing not necessarily be killed, but be taken out of the combat. Right. So I like that.
Will the party know to cut the silver cord?
Well, I think it's easy to give them a hint on that because Thawne is a planeswalker,
sure.
Right? And also because 3/4 of the party has already encountered this sort of silver cord manipulation, right? They've seen that. They've done it before. So, you know, what I don't like about it is sort of feels like it's treading back on ground that we've already covered in that first weird interplanar setup. But I really do like the idea that you can one-shot monsters. That's clever. That's clever. Okay, so the other thing that I think we need to consider is we definitely have to account for some of these things that we had back on page 1. I don't think we're going to get, I don't know if we'll get Xanathar involved. To me, that's maybe a tip jar thing. I don't know that we'll have Gingy involved. I could foresee when we come back at the beginning of the year having some sort of mop-up session or something like that. Right? But I think
Gingy travels back in time and Master Tommen meets him. Puts him in the hole.
But we definitely have to have Laeral Silverhand. We definitely have to stop the ritual. So let's just put those things on the board. We don't know this, but we're going to assume that Laeral Silverhand is there.
Texas Devin.
Howdy, Texas Devin. I've been stranger too. It was sort of a joke. It wasn't a very good joke. No. It was just a joke.
Someone was laughing.
You didn't have to stop and look at me did you mean to say that or did you? Now we're talking about.
I'm waiting for the audience to chip in here. Oh.
No, don't wait for them. Oh, you mean all of the people who are sitting on the couch watching this?
The in-studio audience?
Our live in-studio audience.
Yeah. Everyone speak up so someone can hear you.
I'm trying to think how this show would change if we had risers and an amphitheater where they could watch. Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't.
It wouldn't change. That's the problem. That's really the problem.
Instead of all of my teddy bears lined up on the other side of the camera.
Oh boy.
With the little teacups.
I have a story about that I'm not going to share.
Good.
All right.
Moving on. It was a Monday funny on a Tuesday, says Lee.
Oh boy, yeah. That was, I'm recovering from our move we moved this weekend. So.
Yes, yes.
All I have to say about that. So just listing who could potentially be here, we've got a lot of markers on the board, right?
Yeah.
And on top of all of this, which is also its own bullet point, but needs to be put down here, there's this ritual going on. So whatever that is, that's happening. So those things are all going on. Or these people all need to be represented somehow within the location. They need to be placed someplace. I'm going to put a note in here about the book. And I think there's also a place to pay off something. When we talk about our themes, the whole adventure has had this theme of theater and plays and the script and scripts, right? And I think somehow it would be nice if that was incorporated in this. We're kind of getting ahead of ourselves too, because I think this should be incorporated into the ritual. This is something to think about in terms of the ritual. I don't know that it has to be reflected in the location. But that being said, it's something that I want to keep track of, because I think to really make this feel like the climax of an adventure that started someplace and kept going, in order to bring it thematically back in to context with the rest of the adventure, I think somehow theater and plays and scripts needs to be reincorporated into what happens tomorrow night. Something to keep in mind. So, that's one way. That's one way of, in terms of building our location and figuring out what's going on there. What does it look like? How do we explore? What sort of fantastical aspects does it have? This is one way of looking through it. Of like, here's things that are established that we know, and here are things from the adventure. You know, people are dramatis personae who have been already indicated that they're probably somehow involved in this plot and are probably present at this location, right? That's one way of, because I'm making this whole thing up, right? Keep in mind that this is Texas Dep. I get your reroll, right? It's up to you. You can tune in now, or you can chip in now, or you can tell us tomorrow. That's fine either way. But I'm going to make this thing up basically out of whole cloth, or maybe adapt something or whatever. But this whole thing that's happening right now is not in the adventure, right? So we can take what we've already established from what's preceded and slap that onto our location and try and like get a lens, or see if we can get some things that'll coalesce around that, right? The flip side to doing this, which I think is important, I'm not going to do it on this page. Let's talk about our player characters and what abilities that they have that we want to somehow highlight, let them explore, let them heighten, change, deploy, whatever it is, right? Because the flip side of this is, let's build an interesting challenge that will be suited to what our heroes do, you know, what they have available to them or what they excel at, right? So if we break this down, we go, now, Thawne actually may be one of the most interesting options, because Thawne has kick-ass ranged attacks but also has Black Razor.
Right.
So I could see maybe trying to, we talked about the choices that he's had to face over the course of since acquiring Black Razor. We could maybe force that even more we could create opportunities for him to get in the fight with Black Razor and get really bloody and dirty, or we could create various perches and platforms that he could travel to or shoot his bow from, right? Mm-hmm. Something to think about. But so we look at these abilities. What does he have? And this says, okay, Black Razor, I want to make a cool melee opportunity for him, or I want to create sniper opportunities for him. So I'm.
What if you used Black Razor as an arrow?
Fire Black Razor, or Black Razor was some sort of spear or something like that. I like that idea. I mean, so we could do something where there's some sort of bubble of energy or something like that, that when you go stand in it, you take 20d6 of necrotic damage or something like that. And so if you're within 20 feet of whatever's happening, you can't do it. But if he had the spear, he could shove the sword in and attack the guy, right? I don't know. That's interesting. That's what makes me think like, oh, okay, that could be. Oh, wait, I have to take this call because they're coming to pick up my fridge tomorrow.
Okay.
This is LADWP's refrigerator freezer recycling program. Calling to confirm your scheduled appointment. If this is Tom Lommel, press 1. If not,
It is.
It's Tom Lommel.
It is Tom Lommel, everyone.
LADWP's refrigerator freezer recycling program. Calling to confirm the pickup of your refrigerator. Your appointment is scheduled for Wednesday, December 13th, between 1 p.m. and 5 p.m. Someone 18 years or older
Oh.
must be present for your arrival.
18 years or older, Tom.
You or someone 18 years or older will be present at this time. Press 1.
You sure?
It's me.
Thank you. Please make sure your refrigerator is plugged in, cooling, and empty, with a clear pathway to it, and the water line disconnected. The driver will call you one stop before arriving, so you can restrain pets and clear a pathway to the
Restrain pets.
Sounds.
or need to reschedule. Please call us at 818-237-4486. To repeat this information,
All right. Sorry about that. But if you don't confirm, they don't show up again. That's not good.
Right.
All right. So, but I really do like this idea that there's this burning sphere of energy or something like that, right? That's interesting. So look at, like, already we have like a fantastical feature in our final combat just by going, oh, okay, here's what Thawne can do. How could we twist, reframe? Now the tricky thing here is they might not think to use Black Razor as a spear. You will need to provide something where it's like, oh, there are all of these other, maybe they're and pipes or something like that, right? Or there's some sort of like sticky glue type of situation that's like pins them down or things like that. Something to consider, like there's some sort of ochre or whatever it is, right? So that's we have a lot of refrigerator questions in there.
Yeah.
But so that's an interesting angle already, right? Number one. Okay, let's. Somebody mentioned Avril, so let's do Avril. Let's take her abilities next, right? So what does Havana love to do? She loves to hide. She loves to use that stealth. She loves to assassinate.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. As somebody pointed out, it's an opportunity to either employ Wave or maybe unlock a new ability of Wave. Yeah, so that's thing, and then finally maybe some sort of acrobatics type of thing. Now again, we're looking at a melee type of situation. She has really been stymied by her lack of a magical ranged weapon, right? That's something to consider. Because we might be, we might want to build in some loot here.
She does have wave.
Right, exactly. But she loves to snipe stuff too.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe she should use wave as an arrow.
Yeah, right?
Wave shoots out lasers.
I mean, and the other thing to keep in mind with both of these things is this is an artifact and this is an artifact, right? So we can certainly play with that by saying, oh well, this is something that you the only way that you can cut this creature is by using an artifact. Well, guess what? We've got 2 of them. So we've got a lot of suggestions on how to make the refrigerator pick up a key part of this final encounter.
Yeah, right.
So I'm not sure where this goes, but if we keep in mind that she loves to hide and assassinate, then I think we need to create terrain that helps facilitate that, right? That there needs to be columns and places for her to pop up from behind, run over here, hide behind this, pop up behind that, stab that guy, run over here, pop up behind this, etc. Risky Pixels has a very good suggestion here, which is that there's a transport via water where she could go from like puddle to puddle. That is a great idea. I think
It fits Ava more than it would.
yeah,
Avril.
well, so here's what I think though. Like instead of trying to, because I think of the silver safe hold, we can kind of combine this idea of transport water, but also combine this idea of the Palace of Mirrors. And we could have somehow maybe what happens is they could create some sort of maze of portals within the silver safe hold that they could then use to teleport back and forth, go from here to here to pop back and forth in and out of these mirrors. I think that would be fairly cool, right? And then it would be ability that anybody could use, not just Avril's character or not just Ava's character. But I mean, I realize that that's kind of taking the spotlight off of them, off of that person, but it also makes the combat much more movement focused and dynamic, right? Rather than here's the thing in the middle, here's the big guardian guy around the edge, and then they just sort of converge on that thing, and all the cool stuff that you made around that thing just sort of goes to waste, right? But if you have these portals placed all around the area that they can pop in and out of, then it could turn into maybe some sort of, it could literally turn into a chase scene around the room. We're trying to get this guy. He ducks into a portal, pops out on this side. They duck in, they come after him, etc. Right? It just makes the whole thing more dynamic. And essentially what it does is it shrinks the room because you're able to use your movement to move things around, right? The
make
party
Master
needs at
Tom
least
and-
2 more talking weapons.
Can you make Master Tom into a weapon?
I mean, what if his spirit was embodied into that that sword that
Grayson has?
that Grayson has?
Just make it a hole, Grayson. Whatever inanimate object you hit, it's a hole now.
So I'm going to write 2 things down here. I'm going to write down the idea of columns, which is, terrain for hiding. And I'm also going to write down this, like, I'm going to call it a kaleidoscope. of mirrors. Or potentially something to do with the Quicksilver. You know, what I like about it being a native feature of the Quicksilver is it also like embodies the name a little bit, right? Quicksilver, you jump into the silver portal and you move quickly to someplace else. Mm-hmm. It's not the most original idea, but I do like that it reinforces our theme, right? And it's not, the name is a little hokey, but the idea, the concept is kind of cool, right? So, all right, Grayson.
It's a good saying, Nate Dogg. If someone gets in your way, hit them with a rock.
Just hit him with a rock. Sure, let's all be friends.
I like all the weapons anthropomorphized and going on a brave little toaster style adventure. That's after the Master Tom adventure. Except Tom plays every part.
How many voices can I do?
Yeah.
Let's be honest, it's 3. So, Grayson's main things are being the tank,
protecting the others.
I was going to say self-sacrificing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put tank protector. He's got this new thing of redemption, which he's really experimenting with. And we can't ignore like the possibility that he might divine smite some stuff. That's always like a major damage.
Yeah.
And along those lines, it's important to note that that is radiant damage, right? So if something were, say, vulnerable to radiant damage, it would have a super huge payoff. So that's another thing. Now, where does this lead us? I'm not exactly sure. I think that there could be some sort of situation where he might be able to, we don't have to come up with something for every single character, but
We've already done 3. Might as well do that role.
well, I'm trying to think of like what terrain feature would play into this. Some of it is the columns do help him be tank protector because he can step into a gap and protect somebody. Although it also waters down that ability because they can just step into a portal and possibly flank or circumnavigate around him, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a mix. It's a mix depending upon how we go with there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think he also can use those portals though as a way of getting around, and instead of having to be in front of Avril or whoever all the time, he can move through the portals and protect everyone much faster, but yeah.
Yeah. I think there might be an opportunity somewhere in here for if he donates a spell slot, if he burns a spell slot or he burns some hit points, he could create some sort of effect or whatever. I don't know. He definitely, like, the other thing is his what I'm going to call saving throw aura. So he has that aura that anybody within X number of feet, right? Doesn't he still have that? It's hard to tell since he rebuilt his character. But anybody who's within X number of feet gets a bonus on their saves versus certain stuff.
Let's see if his.
I think you have to look in
Xanathar's.
Xanathar's, yeah. So those are his main features. I'm not sure exactly how they play out, but I like the idea of use hit points or it's part of the main class, says Estelle Castillo.
Oh.
I like the idea of somehow fueling. Well, all right. So I think honestly, something that could potentially play in here, this theme of redemption, is probably the moon stars. You know, and what is their role in this whole thing? Now, we know a couple of things about them, right? Mm-hmm. The main one being, well, two things. The main one being that they're bards, and the second piece of it being that they're part of like a secret, almost anti-Harper type of organization, right? But the fact that they're bards, that, like, we need to exploit that. The third thing that we know about them is that they are students. They are young people. They are not like accomplished agents who are out in the field. They're not a bunch of, 34-year-old James Bond guys who are at the peak of their prowess and their power, right? They're students. So we could give Grayson the opportunity to redeem them somehow and thus mitigate or possibly defeat the ritual, whatever that thing is, right? So I like if we clue in on this. Now, he might not pursue that, but that's okay. We're going to give opportunities. Whether everybody avails themselves of it or not, that does not, who knows. He has Bless. I don't know if he has Magic Weapon. Whether he took it or not. A big problem here with Grayson is I think he's almost out of spell slots. Mm-hmm. And so we either need to give them the opportunity to take a rest, which I'm not super inclined to do, or we could make that an unlockable in the tip jar, which I would consider. Mm-hmm. But, they're a pretty beefy party. Don't forget, there are 5 members of the party right now.
Right.
Right? So not only do we have Ava.
Oh, yeah, there's 2 more. Right. Oh, no, 1 more. You're right. Never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we also have Talia out here, right? So Ava, she has not been able to use her druidic powers, but very much. That's certainly not in combat. But she can shape change. She used Call Lightning to great effect.
Yeah.
She has her divine connection to Basharla, for whatever that's worth. Those are those things, right? But I think we could find an opportunity for shape changing, and the question we have to ask ourselves is, if she can call lightning, what does that mean in the astral? Or what does that mean inside this silver safe hold, right? So, and I don't even know if she has this available anymore, right? So that's one of the things, that she might be out of those spells. I think she burned a lot of her spells.
Yeah.
So I think we need to seriously consider a way that she might be able to shape change that would provide a big boon to the party. And I don't know. I'm not sure what that is. That could be tanking, Mm-hmm. I think also this divine connection could be something that we could exploit story-wise as an explanation for why she might not take as much damage from some sort of environmental effect. We think of it like the place being suffused with this weird sort of like silvery fire. Mm-hmm. That's an idea. I don't know. I want to put some more thought around this thing. Estelle Castillo says we just had a portal rip open to the plane of lightning. There actually is a demi-elemental plane of lightning, so I kind of like that. Yeah, we'll make the plane of arrows and the plane of lightning meet. That makes me wonder, what if the players could create their own demi-plane? Like, what would it be? What would they put in it? Like, what would it be of? And then what would it be like? If it had to be of one thing.
They kind of have their own plane, though, because the jail inside the book is sort of its own little thing.
I mean, yeah, that's true, yes. They have their own extra-dimensional space. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about if the party had the ability to create a demi-plane of one thing.
Oh,
like
I see.
Pudding.
Yeah, right.
And then you open up the demi-plane of pudding and just pudding comes out. What flavor? Demi-plane of bacon. Like there's yeah, there were all kinds of demi-planes, which was super fun. Mm-hmm. But that makes me wonder, like, that would be an interesting reward for the players of, you can now reshape this pocket dimension into one, reforge it into one thing.
Sure.
But
yeah.
what?
Demi-plane of black razors.
Oh God. Hey, that's a good. I like that idea.
Yeah, what he said.
What if instead of being on the astral, it is within the astral? It is the demi-plane of Quicksilver.
Hmm.
Burgermeister Meisterburgers. All right. And then we have Talia as an NPC, and she's very kind of amorphous in terms of what she can do. You know, not super amorphous, but she's not doesn't have a long track record, not very well defined in terms of who she is, what abilities she has. They know that she can cast like 5th level spells, but that's sort of it, right? Which is fine. So we know that about her. I also don't want, like, she probably has some sort of items. We know that she knows this ritual to access the palace. We may want to consider taking her out of this combat, right? A key question we have to ask before we go building the big boss fight around one of her abilities, or including her in the suite of challenges that we're assembling, is, does she need to fight?
Mm-hmm. I'll be right back.
Mm-hmm. Now, the important thing about a character like this is we don't want her to outshine our players. That feels like DM fiat. That feels icky and gross, right? On the other hand, we can't have her get killed off, or I don't feel like it's advisable to have her get killed off, because she has a clear connection with Avril. And that's important, right? I think there are story beats to be followed up on with this connection to Avril. Addicted Decoy says she could be a chat unlockable for sort of a cavalry type of thing. That's possible. You know, I'm not 100% sold on that, but you know, there's a number of different, like Xanathar or Gingy could also be a cavalry type of element. But we need to think about whether we want her involved, and if we do, what's her place? Is there some sort of missing aspect that's not covered by the party here? Essentially, one of the big ones is they don't have a wizard, right? And so she could fulfill a wizard style function. Either caster or support, right? So that's potential there. But we got to think long and hard about, does she need to be involved? Maybe she fulfills a caster support function before they get to the final showdown here, right? Before they get to the ritual. So, let's make a list of things in the silver safe hold that we have brainstormed on here. Some features. I like the idea of curtains of Quicksilver. I like the idea that there is some sort of ever-flowing pool of magic. Right? That this Quicksilver can be bent and shaped and summoned and turned into something. I like that idea. We talked about a sphere of something. Let's just call it necrotic energy. Columns. What else do we have here? So, talked about the sphere. Some sort of acrobatics. What if the Quicksilver was something that you could manipulate by force of will, right? Like you could will it into an object. Can be manipulated. I like that idea. And that ties us back into, okay, I'm going to make a spear, like, you know, use the Quicksilver to form a spear with Black Razor and jab somebody. It also allows us to like throw up bars and things like that and do some acrobatic stuff. It's very dynamic, mutable terrain. So, kaleidoscope of mirrors. Boy, I closed this page. It did not do well. We need a place for these bards. For lack of a better term, I'm going to call it a choir loft. Shape change. Ava's shape changing. Maybe, so here's something. What if the Quicksilver is vulnerable to lightning? That's something to consider. It's just like... What if this was a blade barrier? Instead of a sphere of necrotic energy, what if it was a blade barrier? I like that idea.
That fits more with silver.
And then, you know, one final thing that we need to consider is that it has multiple points that are all reinforcing the ritual. Right? So it could be something like there are 6 different places within the safe hold that are, you know, there's the main rituals happening in the middle, and there are 6 different points around the room where there are miniature or smaller rituals that are somehow adding a layer of protection to this thing, right? And if you take one or more of them down, it begins to diminish. So then we could do this sphere. It could almost be like a sphere of a prismatic sphere. But instead of having to cast all of those spells, you need to disrupt those various rituals. So I like that too. All right. So I think those are that's a pretty good, yeah, I haven't actually read Rise of Tiamat, so I'll have to look at that. I have the book at home, I just haven't delved into it. The tricky part about this is if you make it too dependent upon taking down all 6, you can run up into a time limitation or time, we might be racing the clock in order to, it turns out you only need to do 2 of them. Like I can foresee that happening in the moment. Like, you think if you just take out 2, it's probably going to be diminished enough that you might be able to get through it and still take some damage, right? So I don't know. That's something to think about. All right, let's move on to our last topic here and then kind of wrap it up. I don't want to get too heavy into this today because I want to save some juice for all of you who are going to be watching this at home to kind of explore and whatnot. But if we look at the ritual, again, things that we know about it. It's Asmodeus, Lord of lies.
So everything's going to be pretty straight up.
Yeah, everything will be very obvious and straightforward.
Yeah.
I mean, what this suggests is that there could be some sort of decoy or multiples.
An addicted decoy, maybe?
Yeah, oh no, what? Mirror image, illusion. Something like that, right? So there's that. We know that Lady Laurel Silverhand is somehow involved. One thing that we did, I need to put this down too. They know that there's some, like, I don't know, divine beast or whatever. They know that there's some creature that Erythor was keeping in some sort of, like, green crystal cage, right? Mm-hmm. They found that out. Yeah, you're right on these. That's So whatever that is, the divine beast, that's got to be involved.
Silverbacked gorilla.
It's just it's just Jane Goodall and her friends. So we know that the Moonstars are involved. And from this, I don't know, I think it makes sense that there's some sort of choir or orchestra. That makes me think of an orchestra pit. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want this final thing to take place in a theater itself. I don't think that's too on the nose. And it's too much like what we already had. Mm-hmm. But, in fact, I'm just going to cross that part of it off. Orchestra. I like the idea that they're a choir or an orchestra. We know that Erythor is somehow involved. The other thing about this, like, these are the players, right? Are we missing anyone? I don't think we are.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah. All right. But the other thing that we need to think about is, what is the purpose? What's the greater purpose of this thing? And it is to somehow introduce a greater acceptance of like that was the base idea, right? Was to introduce a greater acceptance of Asmodeus worship. What if this whole ritual really revolves around, and I think this is somewhat similar to an idea that's in Dead Gods, but Asmodeus taking on the guise of another deity. And if we follow up this idea, make it personal for the party, what if it's soon? Right? So what if the whole point of the ritual, and I think I just sort of gave everything away, right? Torm is also like an interesting, it's an interesting option, right? But I feel like Torm is a little too pointed at the party. It's a little too much like, this whole adventure is really about you. But soon is a personal connection that the three of them have, and theoretically, like, it extends to Ava as well through the tattoo, perhaps. But, we just had a session where they recounted their weird night of drunken debauchery and how they got married, but they can't get unmarried, right? And I think it's an incredibly clever plot to have Asmodeus transform into Soon, and then everyone who worships Soon is now worshiping Asmodeus, and he's collecting those prayers and that power in her stead, right? The other thing that I like about this is that we've had a lot of exploration and discovery of all of these very lavish places, right? There's the casino and the swim-up bar restaurant, and we've had a big theme of this adventure in Waterdeep has been look at how you could, like, the lavish accommodations that you can bask in if you just throw enough money around here in civilization. And I think that ties into Soon. We also had an entire parade of Soon worshippers. You would think I planned this out. This literally just occurred to me just now. But I think if we take this, like, if that's the purpose here, then all of a sudden it really, like, takes all of this groundwork that we've sort of been fumbling our way through. And I say fumbling my way through it because I'm fumbling my way through it too, right? But it takes those threads and it ties them together, and it puts, I don't want to say it puts a bow on it, but it forms them into a cogent point that you can go, oh, looking back, it all makes sense now. Oh, that really was a running theme that was going throughout. Now, all of a sudden, we have an idea of, like, what this ritual might be like. Asmodeus might be using Lady Laeral to, like, to assume the appearance of Soon, or whatever it is. All of that, like, it really makes a lot of sense to me. I'm not going to spin around on this anymore because I feel like we've just cracked the heart of what this whole thing is about, right? And the rest of the details are just sort of fill in, kind of like filigree type of stuff. These are the two most important pages of my entire life. That's not true at all. If my wife is watching, which she never is. Never. She's like, I get to listen to you bullshit about Dungeons and Dragons more than I need to. No, stop, don't.
These parts, not as important.
Not as important, but I'm still going to take pictures of them. All right. If anybody else has anything that they want to chip in, I'm open to hearing it. Otherwise, we'll wrap up. I feel like, So I came in today with an idea of what the ritual was, but I didn't have of what's involved in the ritual. I did not have a firm grasp on it. I was prepared to, like, set things up and set things in motion, but where we got to today with this really feels like an amazing kind of payoff. Yeah, Ava has shape changed, and I think she's looking for opportunities to shape change. She hasn't really had a lot of them. So I think we've got to a place where, number one, we got some great fantastical features that we can incorporate into our final combat, and number two, we really do have the makings of a great revelation for when they scry on Erethdor, they see, this dark-horned devil creature that is draining and transferring its life essence out of this fiery, red-haired, unearthly beauty that they all recognize and all have some sort of connection to.
Right.
And now the fight, rather than becoming kind of a perfunctory, like, well, I guess because it's almost Christmas time, this is the big boss fight, and I don't know why we're having it. Now it turns into something that they have a personal stake and are invested in stopping.
Yeah.
So, Addicted Decoy says, is there any way to watch the Last Brigade finale? I don't know. That's a question for Dom. That's off topic.
I don't think the Lost Brigade finale is available. We had a period of a couple of weeks that were lost to time, and the Lost Brigade finale was one of those shows that was in that period. So unfortunately, no, it's gone.
I think it was something like if you don't highlight certain videos on, or was it? Worse
Well,
than
it's
that?
not only that; the recordings on the computer and stuff were lost as
Oh,
well
were
because I think we ran out of space or something, and it wasn't telling us until it wasn't recording of those episodes, and then it's gone. It left Twitch before we could do anything with it. So, yeah. Sorry.
So, that's where we're at with this. I feel good about it. I think we're in good shape for tomorrow night. I have some other ideas in terms of. So the one last thing I'd like to close on here is I don't think we can run this as Theater of the Mind, right? I'd like to run this as on the battle map, moving people around, etc. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much of it I'll have time to build tomorrow, because I won't have time tonight. But I have some ideas for it. I have to put some creative thought into like how much, obviously I have to be over at my other apartment to get my mimic disposed of properly. Always recycle your mimic, everyone. So that needs to happen.
Oh, that's a great sketch idea.
But I may have to find a creative way to deal with this, but I'd like to run it on the tabletop, moving minis around as a tactical combat, as opposed to running it Theater of the Mind.
Yeah.
I just think it's going to play out that much better that way. All right, so there you go.
Cool.
You can see how it plays out by tuning in tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, right here on Saving Throw Show, where we will have the I don't know, is it the year-end finale? The arc finale for sure.
Yeah.
Of Stage Misdirections. You can tune in for that tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Tonight at 8 o'clock, in 4.5 short hours, you can tune in for Eric Reichert, who normally plays Grayson. He is running Session 3 of Lords of Greyhaven, and Session 2 got interesting. I'm curious to see how Session 3 goes. I feel like the players at the table are really gelling as like a player party dynamic, and also I feel like their characters are beginning to gel and come into focus and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
So it's really great to see that cast of characters and cast of players come together. So tune in for that tonight at 8. That's some more D&D action for you if that's what you're craving. Thursday night, we will have...
Crit Juice.
We're planning to have Crit Juice. It's also the debut of Star Wars Thursday night, but you know what? You can go to Star Wars anytime.
Yeah. No one's going to see
Here's the thing. It's The Last Jedi, everybody. Everybody knows that the last one that they make is not necessarily the best one. Right? It's kind of sad that there won't be any more Jedis.
Yeah. He's not returning.
No.
He's lasting.
Yeah. Is he lasting? Is it sort of the everlasting Jedi?
No.
Is that no?
Just a short-term Jedi.
Here's my thing about the Star Wars movie is I know I'm going to see it, and I have no interest in following every single trailer or every single spoiler or every single bit of news that comes across Twitter. I'm like, oh yes, there's a Star Wars movie. At some point, I will see it, and I don't care about any of it. Right
Yeah, I saw a trailer that I didn't want to see that I had been avoiding online and everything, but then I went to go to the movies and they played it before the movie, and there's really nowhere unless you get up and just run out of the theater.
No!
And I was sad that I did because it pretty much revealed everything that was happening in the movie.
Oh no, really? The trailer is that explicit?
Yeah, the director even said, "Please don't watch this trailer." He was like, "It's a very good trailer, and I love the movie, but this trailer will spoil it for you."
Wow.
So.
Yeah. No, I'm not interested in having the movie spoiled. I just want to go see it and enjoy it, and hopefully there'll be more BB-8s, and that's that.
They're gonna get rid of BB-8.
Oh no. Oh, was that one of the spoilers? That BB-8 gets murdered horribly?
Straight up.
Yeah, straight up murdered. Hey, everybody. Oh, the Variety review has a big spoiler in it.
Not reading Variety.
I don't think I need to, like, I know I'm going to go, and if it sucks, I'll be happy to be one of those nerds who's like, well, actually. I mean, how is it gonna be worse than any one of the prequels?
Right.
And if you go back, those are completely unwatchable. I say this as somebody who has tried to watch them and then stabbed myself several times. So, yeah, thanks for sending your finale pictures in, Estelle Castillo. That was very interesting to see. I wanted to know more after seeing those pictures. I don't know if you saw the pictures.
I didn't know.
I will show them to you
Okay.
off stream. So, big thanks to everyone who joined us today. We got some great stuff together here, and I'm excited to run tomorrow night's session. I think it'll be, I think it's going to be super interesting and a real climactic payoff to this whole thing. That honestly, sometimes like there are moments where the play experience is good, but the investigation part of it really feels like we're kind of grasping at straws in the dark, and that's not uncommon for a murder mystery style investigation plot. But that's something I'm looking forward to, like having pay off and wrapped up and like have it build to a finale.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. So thank you for all of your input and suggestions. Thank you to Farquaad and the rest of our regulars who mod and keep the channel friendly, safe, clean, and accessible. Thanks to everybody who donated. Texas Devin, thanks for that reroll. Am I getting the? Has it been?
Yes, it is. He sent it to you.
Yes! Very good, very good. So, with that in mind, we'll catch you tomorrow night. Until then...
No, don't even start. Don't even start.
Huh?
Don't start yet.
Don't start yet? Oh, you're
Okay.
not ready?
All right.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Now, listen. I feel like it's cheating if you have to go, oh, wait a minute, I don't have my finger on the button. Well, we know it's cheating, right? Domzuk's a cheater. Let's Dungeon!